everyone. Today we're going to start our unit, Personal Reflections. And the reason that we're doing this unit is because we're still doing nonfiction, but I wanted you to be aware that there's some nonfiction out there that actually looks a little bit like fiction, and it's important for you to know the difference. So what are those pieces of nonfiction that look like fiction? They're called diaries and journals, memoirs, personal narratives, and autobiographies. And we're going to take a look at each one of those today so that you're not confused moving forward. So very interesting. Do you see what I did there? Got Venn? What you're seeing up here on the board is called a Venn diagram. And the first thing we're going to look at in our Venn diagram today are diaries versus journals. Two pieces of nonfiction that look kind of similar but have very, very minor differences. So our Venn diagram serves to show us those similarities which go in the center where the two circles intersect, and the differences go on the outside. You'll see that they're in the diary circle and they're in the journal circle. So let's take a look at these differences and similarities. On the diary side in the circle, we see that diaries are personal and they express emotions. On the other side, over here in the journal part, we see that they're more casual and they're everyday items and events. You don't see too many feelings in journals. So that's a big difference. In diaries, we see an expression of emotions and feelings, and people really dive into their emotions in diaries because they feel safe revealing them to their diary. It's not a real thing, but they write to it as if it is. And then over here you have journals, and that's very casual. Today I woke up. Today I went to the store. Today I got a dog, right? That's what a journal is. So in the middle, we have the similarities. And those are first-person point of view. Both of those are in first-person point of view. That means that the author, narrator, is the person. They are saying it. I woke up this morning. I went to the store. I got a dog. Then you have the speaker narrator is the author, but we see that in nonfiction a lot. Besides in a biography, we see that the narrator is always the author. The person who wrote it is the person saying it, speaking it to you. The tone mood is evident in diaries and journals. That's the point of diaries, actually, not so much journals, but the tone or mood in a diary is evident because they are expressing their emotions. Again, it's a safe place to put their emotions on paper. So you're going to pick up a tone and a mood that way. And in a journal, if they had a bad day, you're probably going to see that in their journal entry in their tone. They're both separated into sections or entries. So you're going to notice that there's a date on diaries and journals. The method of organization is chronological. Every diary entry goes in the order in which those things happen to the person. Same thing with journals. Today, tomorrow, next day. And then, of course, the setting is typically given. In your diary, you're going to see an example where the diary setting is told specifically to you. And, of course, that matters because if you're dumped at the prom, the setting of the prom matters because that makes it that much more emotional for you. And then, of course, a journal, on the other hand, you have to say where you are and what you're doing. So we need a setting. So that's your journals and diaries. Ain't no thing. Pretty simple stuff, right? And you're all familiar with diaries and journals, so I think that you get this pretty easily. And that moves us on to an example of a diary. Now, this is kind of a fun twist on it. The point of view here is a cat's point of view. The narrator is a cat. So it's kind of funny. Day 983 of my captivity, my captors continue to taunt me with bizarre dangling objects. They dine lavishly on fresh meat, while the other inmates and I are fed hash or some sort of dry nuggets. Although I make my contempt for the rations perfectly clear, I nevertheless must eat something in order to keep up my strength. The only thing that keeps me going is my dream of escape. In an attempt to discuss them, I once again vomit on the carpet. Today I decapitated a mouse and dropped its headless body at their feet. I had hoped this would strike fear into their hearts, since this clearly demonstrates my capabilities. However, they merely made condescending comments about what a good little hunter I am. So kind of funny there. If you can imagine a cat, and cats have attitudes, talking about a day in the life of a cat, that's probably what the cat would say. So that's the diary entry of a cat. Here's a more serious one. I've reached the point where I hardly care whether I live or die. The world will keep on turning without me, and I can't do anything to change events anyway. I'll just let matters take their course and concentrate on studying and hope that everything will be all right in the end. And here you see your diary entry has a date on it, which of course makes it a diary entry. But the minute I was alone, I knew I was going to cry my eyes out. I slid to the floor in my nightgown and began by saying my prayers very fervently. Then I drew my knees to my chest, laid my head on my arms, and cried, all huddled up on the bare floor. A loud sob brought me back down to earth. And there again is your dated diary entry. So what do we see interesting in this diary entry? I've reached the point where I hardly care whether I live or die. There's the emotions being expressed. And of course down here, it says that she drew her knees to her chest, laid my head on my arms and cried while huddled up on the bare floor. There's your setting. She was very careful. And this is from Anne Frank's diary, the diary of Anne Frank. So we see that there's even a little imagery in here, which we're going to talk about again. Here's another entry, Saturday, October 6, 2007. What a busy day today. I never had a moment's rest. The day started with my alarm clock blaring at 7 a.m. I had to be at the Smith's house by 8 a.m. to babysit. I really didn't want to wake up so early on a Saturday, but I'm saving my money to buy a new iPod, and I couldn't say no to an all-day babysitting job. Can you guess what that is? Is that journal or diary? All right, if you said that that's a journal entry, you were correct. There's very, very little emotion in there. It's just more of a chronological recap of what her day was like. Memoirs, personal narratives. These are our next types of nonfiction that are told as a personal reflection. They are told in first-person point of view. They are also the speaker or narrator is the author. Again, this is typical with nonfiction. And these people are writing because they were impacted by the event they are retelling. Do you love my little dog? Tone mood is evident and matches the content. So again, we're going to pick up on a tone and a mood in the memoirs and personal narratives. Method of organization, chronological, but may include a flashback here and there. By theme and lesson learned, you could organize it that way as well, or you could organize it by the people that affected you throughout this memoir. It just depends on what you're writing about. So method of organization may vary. It includes elements of a story and sometimes dialogue, so don't be confused. It's going to look a lot like fiction, but it's not fiction. It's actually real. It's just arranged in such a way to tell a story over time. It includes thoughts, feelings, reflections, and reactions, so pay attention to all these things because this is really revealing. Memoirs and personal narratives are very revealing of the person who writes them. It focuses on a memory in the speaker's or narrator's life that may span a day, a few days, or even a few years. Memoirs could be written in sections over a few years. And the significant difference between a personal narrative and a memoir is that the narrative has more of a defined plot. It's this happened, then that, then this, then that, then this. It's really about what happened. The memoir, however, is going to be a bit more scattered in its plot. It may go this, then that, then this, and then go back to the childhood because it's a significant point in the memoir. So it may be a little bit all over the place. And you may also see in a memoir other people's feelings and points of view that were noticed by the narrator of this memoir. So that's it for memoirs and personal narratives. Let's take a look at one. I laid my head in my mother's lap. She was starting to get anxious and restless, so I sat her next to me on the couch. I had the urge to lay my head in her lap. It has been years since I did that, and it brought back a flood of memories of my childhood. She gently smoothed my hair and ran her cool hands over my face. She spoke softly, saying it's nice, and other words which didn't really make sentences, yet were comforting to hear. As a child, I had many earaches, and she would have a heating pad under my head as I laid my head on my mother's lap. When we were in church, I would sometimes get restless, as most small children do. I laid my head in my mother's lap. She'd smooth my hair and run her cool hands over my face. Even though she can't remember my name or her words won't always make sense anymore, I cried knowing she still remembered how to be my mother when I laid my head in my mother's lap. And I'm sorry, that last part is cut off. Basically, this mother has lost her mind. She has dementia, Alzheimer's, something like that. But you can see here that she talks about her mother's feelings. This is where I told you earlier, she'll reflect. A person who writes a memoir will reflect on the way other people were feeling, and we see that there. We also see here that she talks about her own feelings and actually flashes back to a time when she was a child, another characteristic of the memoir. And then, of course, down here we have her feelings, and she reveals how she feels about this particular moment. Again, a lot like you'll see in a memoir. Finally, we have an autobiography, and there again we see the first-person point of view in our monkey today. We see that the speaker and narrator, again, is the author. Our monkey tells us that the method of organization, again, is chronological. It may include a flashback. It's by theme, lesson learned, or by people that affected them throughout their lives. So very similar stuff here. It includes thoughts, feelings, reflections, and reactions. But with this one, you can detect a tone in these pieces because the events, memories about which they write made them feel a certain way. And again, it focuses on the speaker's narrator's life over a long period of time and the events that were significant throughout their life, and the dates and times are typically accurate in an autobiography. So again, very important. Let's take a look at an autobiography and see the difference. Now here we have, I was born in 1973, so we're getting times and dates, which again, is a characteristic of an autobiography. You don't see that in memoirs. They're looser and more casual. And then down here, we see again a reference to age, which is again, autobiography is definitely one to use when you write an autobiography, which is about you. You go through your life and you're very accurate about the things that affected you and very careful about what you choose to include. As this particular autobiography would go on, they would continue to talk about this particular autobiography is about their life as a photographer and everything that helped them to become a photographer. So this next paragraph would lead to the next block in their life that was important to them in becoming a photographer. So just be careful with these narrators. Yikes! They are speaking from first-person point of view. And remember, we talked about reliable narrators. The old adage, there's two sides to every story. You're only hearing it through their eyes. You're only hearing it from their point of view. So other people could have seen some situations that they talk about in memoirs and autobiographies very differently. So just be careful with their point of view. In summary, all of it in a nutshell. Love that picture. We have that this nonfiction is different from the ones we've been looking at. It's not a speech. It doesn't explain. It doesn't inform. These tell a story, and it makes it similar to nonfiction. We'll find elements of a story and elements of fiction in these types of nonfiction. So you'll see characters, dialogue, maybe even imagery and figurative language, because the narrator is going to want you to see, hear, taste, smell, and feel his or her experience. You can connect with the narrator and learn through his or her experiences, so you never have to go through that type of thing. That's why they tell these stories. And how will you know? That's a great question. Since it's so similar to fiction, how are you going to know? Well, where did you find the literature, first of all? That's going to be a clue. If you found it in a magazine, you might want to just look up the backgrounds on the author. Are you being told it's nonfiction, like on a test? Read this piece of nonfiction. There's your clue. Or do you recognize the narrator author as a writer of nonfiction? That's your other clue. So that's it, everybody. Got smart? Go take your quiz. Get quizzical. I'll see you in class.